Hi everyone, it's Denise with Liquid Color, and today you might have noticed that this is not an endangered species paint with me video. I know we just started this series. However, I was going to be doing a winter skate today, which is a type of endangered fish, and I had started researching and writing and compiling all of my information and thinking about the things I wanted to talk about, and one of which included overfishing and things like that. And it just so happened that my boyfriend's mother is in town, and he mentioned just yesterday or the day before, I think, that they wanted to go to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So Monterey Bay Aquarium is, I don't know, about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from here, and they're the ones who started the Seafood Watch program that I'm going to be talking about in that video. And so we're going to, tomorrow, when you guys are watching this video, it'll be tomorrow, to the aquarium, and I wanted to be able to go there, maybe find out some more information and bring that back to you to include in that video. So rather than trying to scramble to research a new species that was going to be later in the line, I thought I would just do something fun today, and I am going to be reviewing a much anticipated line of paints, the Senneliers, and I've done a Sennelier mini kind of review before because Coloring Caria sent over her little mini set that she had of the 8 colors that come in like a little tin, and she was very kind and let me play with that and then send it back to her. But the problem is that I didn't like the color selection in that set, and so I really wanted to give them another try by trying out a different set. And I put the question forward to my patrons on what they wanted to see, not just Senneliers, but lots of other brands of paint and papers and things like that. And this was at the top of their list. So originally when I asked them, I said I wanted to get the 12+6 set that are available at a lot of retailers online here in the United States. But I was using my Amazon Associates funds that you guys are able to send back to this channel when you purchase using my Amazon links in the description below, and they didn't have it either. So I went ahead and looked at Jackson's, which is a company in London. I posted a video on Wednesday showing you the unboxing of getting this in the mail, and they had it at a much more reasonable price. This isn't the same set, but I took a lot of time to look at the different sets that they had available, what colors came in each set, compared to the financial investment in each one, and this one for me was the best decision. So this is a 14 color set. So let's go ahead and dive right in, and I'll first off say that this is a weird box. I've already taken it out of the box just a little bit. I haven't unwrapped any of the paints or anything like that. I have seen another review or two here on YouTube. The one that comes to mind is Eve's. I mentioned that in the unboxing video as well, and I'll put a card up here for you if you want to see her take on it. And You'll see what I mean when we open it up. This is the packaging that it comes in. It comes in several different languages for you to read, and just basically says that it's a travel box that has 14 colors in it. So we're gonna go ahead and take it out. There's no fancy packaging inside. It just kind of comes out in this little set here. Now, my box does not close properly right now, and I am 99% sure that that's because the paints inside of it are wrapped. Let me go ahead and zoom out just a tiny bit. There we go, so you can see that a little bit better. But the kind of premise behind this tin is that when you close the lid, the little tray goes in, and when you open the lid, the tray pops out kind of without you touching it, but the lid won't close unless you have that tray tucked in. So it's a little fidgety and squirrely, and that I think is the biggest complaint about this set. I think it was made to look a little bit fancier. You can hold it with your thumb, and it's quite comfortable actually. It's lightweight, and it balances over your hand, so that's not a problem. But this part of the tray does not flatten out. It stays at an angle, and that makes it, let me see if I can show you here. It stays at an angle, which means that when you're painting, if you're painting in front of you, like if you were plein air painting in front of you, it would be a little bit cumbersome. But yeah, and some other features about this palette are we have the thumb hole, we have 8 mixing wells. If you take this tray all the way out, which is not too hard to do, there's 2 more mixing wells up here. I would honestly prefer that this tray not be able to come out at all, like have it be locked kind of in its place, because the other thing that is a little bit too easy to do is to, you know, disconnect it from the set. It comes with a little teeny tiny brush. Now, I mentioned this in the unboxing video that this is labeled as a size 3, but it's really comparable to like a size 1 in my Grumbacher's. Let me show you that here. The bristles are longer, but the diameter of the brush is about the same. And let me show you compared to an actual 3 in my Grumbacher line. You can see that there's quite a bit more amount of hair in there. So I don't think I will ever have a purpose for this particular tiny brush unless it's for doing super, super teeny tiny details. I certainly couldn't paint a whole painting with it if I was out on the go. But this set does seem to have, I think, 3 places to put a brush. There is a little pocket back here, there's a pocket in the front, and then there's this tray here as well. This whole tray of paints lifts out, which I thought was interesting, and I'm not sure how necessary that is, but it's there if you just wanted to, you know, get rid of this box and use this on your table or something. There's 2 different levels on this, if you can see that. It has like a little step, so the paints on the top are a little bit higher up than the paints underneath. And then when you go to put it back in the tray, there are these little pegs that it lines up on so that it locks back in place. There we go. All right. So it comes with the 14 colors, like I mentioned. I did go through and loosen these up a bit because they were crammed in there. I probably spent over 5 minutes just trying to loosen these up so I wouldn't have to fidget with them on film for you. But here's what the packaging looks like on each pan. There we go. All right, so here's the front. We can wrap around to the side, and that has, I think, just its name and its reference number. And on the other side we have the pigment information, light fastness ratings, and all of that other fun stuff. I think one of the biggest complaints that I've seen about this set is the number of reds, and I will be the first to agree that I have absolutely zero use to have 4, arguably 5 red tones in a single 14 color palette. However, I do think it's very important to note that Sennelier is known for its glazing properties, which are then in fact used by many botanical and floral painters, and floral painters do have a use for 4 or 5 reds in a set like this. So I think if they are marketing to that particular audience, that they probably did a just fine job. I personally like more earth tones and things like that. You know that if you've watched the channel. So for me, it doesn't work great, and I'll probably end up replacing some of these colors, but for a botanical painter, I think that this selection is probably a pretty good start. So I just wanted to address that right off the bat, but of course we will look into more detail when we swatch them out. So I'm going to go ahead and unwrap each of these so that we can get to painting. I'm going to speed up the footage while I do that so you don't have to sit through it all. Alright everyone, so I'm going to keep these handy just in case I need them later. I will take a look at like light fast information and transparency ratings and things like that. But I have everything unwrapped here. Now I can already tell in terms of the way I like to organize my palette that I'm going to want to move this red. It's really, really dark, and so I'm going to want it next to my purple. That's just me personally. So I'm going to shift these around a little bit, but I did take the time to write the name of the paints. That's not a good example, I shortened it. I wrote the name of the paints on the side of the pan so that if they were to get mixed up, I would be able to tell the difference. Now, the reason that that is particularly important with this set is that they don't really have a way of staying in their little cases. So when you have it closed, can you hear them rattling They just like rattle freely inside the case, and they're not gonna like move too far when they're packed up, but because this is so easy to open, actually let's start with the fact that you can see it closed now because the wrappers are off. But all I have to do is like tug on this little piece here and it pops right open. So if this were in my purse or something and my keys got stuck in there, you could open this up and then all your paint would go flying out. So definitely not super, super desirable, at least in my opinion for travel. I wouldn't mind though using it here. So instead of calling this a travel box, maybe I would just call this, you know, like a fancy studio box. I have no idea. Anyway, so I did want to warn you about that, and I thought to try and combat that, however that is supposed to be said. I figured I would go ahead and try and put a little zot at the bottom of this to at least keep the pan in there. Now, these pieces of paint do not stick into their pans yet, and that is because we haven't put water in them, and as soon as we do, they will adhere to their pans a little bit better. But at least to put our pan inside of our set, I think that that's... Holy cow. I swear the wind and the trucks today have just been so loud. That'll keep our pan in our set, and then we won't have to worry about the pan coming out at least. So I have my adhesive dots. You've seen these in other videos that I've done before. I modified my Cotman set with these. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little clear adhesive dot and I'm going to put it on the underside of my pan, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in the container. Now I am going to say that once you put this in there, it's going to be real hard to get them out. So just keep that in mind, that if you are going to adhere your pans in any way, that if you want to switch around colors, that might not be the best idea. For that reason, I'm going to go ahead and test out my colors before I do that. This is a PY3 yellow. I already know that, so I'm not too worried about not liking that color or anything, but I'll wait to do the rest of them. I do also want to say that kind of oddly, there are these holes in the underside of all of the containers. So I don't know if that's to push them out if they get stuck in there. Maybe that's what that's for. I think that there is a cause for concern that water might drip out of these if you're not a super, super careful painter, although there's this bottom tray to catch most of it, but it has this big hole in the middle. So I don't know, a lot of really interesting design choices here. I don't know how I feel about them yet because I haven't painted with them yet, but let's just go ahead and take out the colors before we make any more assumptions about this box. So before I started filming this video, I did make out all of my swatch cards with the brand of paint, the name of the paint, and the pigment, along with my opacity lines. So we're going to go ahead and swatch these out, and then we can take a look and compare them to other brands of paint. I have misted the tops of my paints so that they are a little bit easier to pick up, and I'm using a 1/2 inch flat brush, which is what I use for all of my swatches. We've got a lemon yellow, Sennelier orange. This, again, you know me, this is not a color I will use. I'm actually going to switch it out for another orange in a minute or two, and I'll show you that. We have French vermilion, which is actually really close to a very, very warm red. So that I don't have a problem with. We've got alizarin crimson, and their alizarin crimson isn't like the other ones I've seen, although I'm not an expert in this field. I don't really have this color, but this is definitely a browner color. This is actually the one that I said, oh, I'm going to put it by the purple because it's really dark, and I expected it to be that warm, cool alizarin crimson, and this is definitely, I think, closer to orange than it is to blue. Then we've got quinacridone red and carmine these are the only two pigments I'm not really sure why they put in both, because they're very, very similar. I can tell the difference. This is a little bit warmer, this is a little bit cooler, but they're so close in terms of hue that you could really replace one of these with something else. We've got a dioxazine purple, ultramarine deep, phthalo blue. They call theirs primary instead of blue shade, but it is blue shade. Forest green, which is a dark green, very similar to a PG8 green. That is a fugitive pigment that I'm very sad about because I think it's a gorgeous color, but I'm really excited to see that in here, even though it is a composite pigment. We've got phthalo green light, which is not phthalo green yellow shade. This is actually made from the blue shade and a yellow, so that's a little strange, and it's not a color that I would find myself using very often, but maybe it's good. Maybe I should try it out in this set. Then we've also got burnt sienna and warm sepia and Payne's gray. So we're going to take a look at them in comparison to my swatch binder to compare them to other brands so that you can see a little bit more about them. So first up we have PY3, which is lemon yellow. It's very close to just about any other lemon yellow. I think it's most comparable to the Schmincke, which doesn't surprise me since they're both European companies. It would make sense that that market is after the same color. It's a little cooler than the Daniel Smith lemon yellow, and it's probably one of the most transparent, if not the most transparent of the bunch. Then we've got Sennelier orange, and Sennelier orange, I have a couple others that we can compare it to. I think it actually kind of sits somewhere between the PO73s I have and then the PO71 that I have up here. It sits like right here in between. It's very, very bright, unnatural color that I think you would need to mix with something else in order to make it worthwhile. I'm just going to say this right now, pretty much all the Sennelier paints are completely transparent, so you don't have to worry about that in the slightest. All of them are just fantastic in that regard. Then we have Sennelier's French vermilion, and this would also go on this same page here that I have in my swatch book. I don't really have a lot of vermilion. This is Mission Gold's version down here in the corner. It's probably most comparable to maybe the Van Gogh in terms of its hue, but the Van Gogh is really, really opaque versus the Sennelier, which is very, very transparent. I'm just going to stop saying that. They're all transparent. Oh, it's also very similar to American Journey's Poppy. You can see that here. The American Journey is a little bit flatter, whereas the Sennelier is a bit more vibrant. Then we've got alizarin crimson, and I don't really have anything in this area to compare it to. I guess it's kind of similar to the Schmincke transparent red deep, but it's definitely darker. Let me go ahead and flip back to my natural colors for just a second. Yeah, I think it's most comparable to the colors on this page, where we have Turner's Brown Madder and Mission Gold's Perylene Maroon. I think that's where it fits in. So why they included it as alizarin crimson, where alizarin crimson, for one, is usually a cooler pigment, and secondly, when they could have done a single pigment version of this, is a little bit perplexing. If we switch back to our reds, we've got their quinacridone red, which is PR209. I've got Mission Gold's Cherry Red and American Journey's Coral Red. Those are here and here, and it's pretty comparable. Same type of color. I probably prefer American Journey's the most, but the Sennelier isn't bad either. And then we have PV19, which they call Carmine. Schmincke also calls their version Carmine with PV19, but this is in line with all of my other permanent rose, quinacridone rose, all of those colors. It is on the redder side versus the pink side, say like with Van Gogh's quinacridone rose, but it's okay. I think I do prefer the vibrancy of some of the other brands, but you can tell with any of these paints that when they glaze a second time that they are substantially more vibrant than their first layer of paint. Then I've got my Dioxazine Violet. I'm sorry, there is a glare for me when there isn't a glare for you, and there's a glare for you if there isn't one for me. So I'm trying to like look and compare colors and try and see what's going on. So it's definitely not as dark as Coors. I would say it is not quite as dark as Winsor & Newton's either, but it's really comparable to the American Journey. I like the Dioxazine Purple more than the American Journey's version, but I think it's fine. Then we've got Ultramarine Deep. They call theirs deep, but it's still just PB29, so we don't have to worry about that. It is pretty light on the granulation, and it is a nice light kind of airy color. It's not too heavy. Like Mission Gold's Ultramarine Deep, it has an extra pigment in it, and it just feels really heavy and weighed down. And Van Gogh's isn't that light, bright, beautiful color. This has a lot more, I think, vibrance and transparency in it. I think my favorite is still, like, and this whole page is ultramarine, but I think my favorite is still the Daniel Smith Ultramarine. I really, really like the vibrancy and the granulation pattern, but I do like the Schmincke's. It does glaze better than the Schmincke here. You can see a much bigger difference between this stripe comparatively to the background on the Sennelier version. Then we've got Phthalo Blue. I have a slightly smaller page of Phthalo Blue for us to look at. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that real well. I'll move it over here. It's pretty much, this is, we have a lot of standard colors in this set that are going to be really comparable to, I think, a lot of other brands. Just like some of the other colors that we've looked at, this is a much lighter, brighter version of some of these colors, whereas some of these are more deep and have a little bit more body to them. Then we've got our Forest Green, and I don't think I have anything super comparable on this particular page. Maybe the Mission Gold Van Dyke Green is very, very similar, also a composite mixture here. But the one that I was thinking that I could compare it to is Toddy Green from Pfeiffer. Okay, it's not quite the same color. The Toddy Green, I was imagining it a little bit more blue. The Toddy Green is more of a mossy color. So I guess all in all, yeah, this would be a lot closer to the Van Dyke Green or even the Perylene Green from Daniel Smith, even though this is definitely more vibrant and more of a green tone. Our super bright springy green, the only thing I have comparable to it, again, it's not a color that I use or desire to use very much in my paints, is the Jane Davenport green called Jiminy. Let me see if I have anything comparable on my Daniel Smith chart, though. Yeah, it looks a lot like Phthalo Yellow Green here. So maybe that's kind of a comparable color they were going for. Just to not be confused, Phthalo Green Yellow shade is the one down here, and this is Phthalo Yellow Green. So I assume, I haven't looked it up, but I think that this is a composite mixture, and this is what that one reminds me of. Then we can go to our lovely assortment of burnt siennas. Oof, let me pull this over. There we go. So this is definitely weaker than any of the other burnt siennas that I have that are made from PBR7. I don't think that they really go together. I think this is much closer to, can you still see that? Slide back over. Here we go. Like the Cotman burnt sienna, Winsor Newton burnt sienna, which is made from PR101. I think that the Sennelier is a lot closer to that. It's also kind of similar to the transparent sienna from Schmincke, but the transparent sienna doesn't glaze as nicely. You can see that there's not a very big difference between the two glazes versus this one does glaze tremendously better. Then I've got warm sepia, which is definitely darker than a burnt umber. So if we switch on over to the next page here, we've got more versions of burnt umber. It's actually kind of very similar to the My Mary Blue Burnt Umber. Those two are very similar. Or Mission Gold's Van Dyke Brown. Although the Van Dyke Brown is made from only one pigment versus the sepia is made from two. And then if we come over here, I do have Schmincke Sepia Brown is almost a black color. You see that? Sorry. I definitely prefer Sennelier's version because you all know I like warm colors. So I think this is definitely comparable to some of the darker burnt umbers. And then finally we have Payne's Gray, and I think it's pretty comparable, I don't know, kind of like Daniel Smith's Indigo maybe? I don't have Daniel Smith's Payne's Gray, so I can't really compare it to that. Here's a little bitty swatch of the Daniel Smith Payne's Gray next to the Sennelier, and it's pretty close to that as well. Alright, so that is a first look at the Sennelier 14 pan travel watercolor palette. And overall, you know, I don't think it's that bad. I know that this case has a lot of criticisms, and maybe I'll find that working with it is super, super obnoxious, but I can always take the pans out of the tray and put them into a metal tin if I'd like to, or, you know, something else to carry them in. This set only costs somewhere around 40, I think a little less than 40 US dollars on the Jackson's website, which comparatively to the US, if I tried to buy 14 pans of paint, that would be really, really expensive here. So I think it's a good deal overall, even if you're not going to use the tray that it comes in. I do think that in general, they're incredibly transparent. They are really beautiful in glazes. I can't wait to try these out. And of course, I'll have a part 2 to this review so that you can see them in action. I am going to do a little bit of modifying to the palette, and I want to show you what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to be taking out the Carmine and the Sennelier Orange. So the Sennelier Orange only because I don't really use this really bright color, and the Carmine because I prefer the Quin Red over it, and they're very, very similar in color. So we're going to go ahead and pull those out. So I've got those two pans I'm going to set to the side for just a moment, and then I'm going to kind of do a little bit of rearranging. I mentioned that this alizarin crimson was very deep, like a naphthalene maroon, so I'm going to go ahead and slide this over here with my earth tones, and I'm going to be adding a Chinese orange by Sennelier. This is the one that I mentioned before. It's the only other tube of Sennelier that I have that a viewer sent me. It's made with the quinacridone gold, so it's kind of like this precious paint that I haven't wanted to use a whole lot of because I'm afraid of it running out, but I've got to use it at some point. So I'm going to slide that into my earth tones as well. It's very close to like a quinacridone burnt orange, and I love working with that color. And I'm also going to be adding, since I don't have another Sennelier tube, this is Rembrandt. It's another single tube that I've got here, and it is Red Violet, and this is that really, really purpley tone of magenta that I mentioned that the Carmine was not. Let me show you these side by side. Even though they're made with the same pigment, they're very different colors. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this in to my reds in between my red and my purple. So now I've got one yellow, one red, one purple, and then I've got like a red orange and then a red violet on either side. I can slide my blues up into this row and slide all of these tones over, so I've got my earth tones and greens and then all of my primary type mixing colors plus purple up on the top. So let me go ahead and take a moment to do that. Normally I would use a palette knife for this. I just don't know where mine is, so I'm using a toothpick. A little bit tricky. Alrighty, so with just a couple changes, I think I'm pretty happy with this. It's not a palette that I would normally put together in terms of, like, I wouldn't usually pick French Vermilion, I wouldn't pick that phthalo green light, but You know, I'm really excited to try this out and try out some new colors. It's a little odd that there's only one yellow. It would be nice if they had a warmer yellow in this set of 14, but I'll try and live with it and see what I can do. If you're only going to have one yellow, PY3 is not a bad color to go with. I've got two blues. I've got a warm red, a medium red, and a really, really violety red that I can work with for mixing, and I've got a wide range of, even though they're not typically the earth tones that I work with, I'm really excited to try them out. I hope that you really enjoyed taking a look at the Sennelier 14 pan travel set, and if you'd like to see part 2, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you hit that red subscribe button down below so you can check that out when it comes out, and check out my other content here with my other reviews and the other series that I have going on. So thank you so much for tuning in. I love having you all here. Thanks to my patrons for helping to support my content, and to all of you who spent money on Amazon using my Amazon affiliates links that allowed me to purchase this set and review it here on the channel. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.